Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to our boot camp second session with Jonathan Wrights. This is Debbie Fawcett, and I serve on the board as one of the membership directors along with Paul Olmsted. And it's an honor to introduce our next speaker, Jonathan Wrights. He's CoachNet's Director of Training, CEO, and Jonathan has been coaching since 1997 and has trained coaches since 2002. Jonathan has worked with over 500 clients in the church, the nonprofit sector, and the business world. He holds the Master Certified Coach from the International Coach Federation, and he is the author of Coaching Hacks, Simple Strategies to Make Every Conversation More Effective, and is the primary architect of the integrated coach training process. With that, welcome, Jonathan. Can't wait to hear about your Drop and Give Me 20 presentation. So take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm excited about the conversation today. You know, this is a topic that for me has become a deeper and deeper dive over the last probably 3 years. You know, and I think it's interesting, and I know you heard in the first session of this particular boot camp event about how the competencies around what a coach does are changing, they're growing, they're evolving. I'm sorry, I forgot who I was talking to for a moment. The competencies around what a coach does, they aren't evolving, they're intelligently designed. I mean, right? That we got to know your audience when you're talking to a particular group like this. So all this to say is they're changing, and I think understanding how these changes take place is pretty critical. It's pretty important for us as coaches to understand how this idea of coaching presence might be changing as a part of how the competencies as a whole are changing. So today on the CCNI Bootcamp, Drop and Give Me 20, the many faces of coaching presence. I tried to come up with 20. I actually did come up with a list of 20 different ways I think coaching presence has changed since I started coaching, and I picked out the best 9. The single digits, the 9 that are absolutely critical, I think, if you want to coach effectively a variety of people in a variety of ways and do it while being faithful to, first of all, the Lord, secondly, to your particular calling as a coach, and thirdly, to your particular giftedness and style of coaching. Because that's the thing about coaching presence, and this is critical to understand. And this is going to sound cheesy, so you can go ahead and laugh out loud when I say the cheesy thing I'm about to say, because this is one of those things that I think is easy to remember because it's so cheesy. Well, coaches, you know, are like snowflakes. There's no two that are exactly alike. So that cheesy little reminder, I think, is a helpful thought for us, because the gifts that I have are different than the gifts that, say, Debbie has, or the gifts that Walt Hastings has. So your coaching presence is going to look just a little bit different than mine is, even though we're being governed by the same competencies. We're being governed by the same PCC markers. We're going to look at both of those through the course of this conversation. A critical understanding for coaching presence is not only what the client is trying to accomplish, but also the particular gifts, experience, wiring, mindset, attitude, preparation that you bring into the conversation. So coaching presence can look a whole bunch of different ways, even for an individual coach. And I would just suggest to you that that's absolutely critical to remember, that our gifts, giftedness, our experience, our wiring, the circumstances we're in, all have an effect on coaching presence. And while it is critical to focus on developing that coaching presence, I'd suggest it's every bit as critical to focus on the unique expression of that coaching presence in your particular coaching conversation. All right, so that's a key understanding, a key introduction to what we're going to talk about over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. So let's jump in, shall we? Like you heard Debbie say, I'm Jonathan Wrights, the Director of Training and the CEO at CoachNet. Coaching, yeah, you heard all of this. That is actually me. I'm much taller in person, but you probably can't get that sense from that particular photo. So now I'm going to be sort of, for lack of a better term, over the next 35 to 45 minutes, I'm going to be your drill instructor. Now, we've all got a picture in our mind of what a drill instructor is. I'm going to be your drill instructor around the idea of coaching presence. So, as a drill instructor, what do you do? What do you do when you're a drill instructor? Well, just the name has two key components. First of all, instructor, there's a teaching component to what a drill instructor does. And secondly, there's a repetition, there's a drilling component. There's a repetition. I would suggest to you now, all of you that are working on credentials or that have credentials, you know this. Repetition of anything tends to make you better at doing that particular thing. And the drill instructor sets up structured and focused repetition of a key skill for your development, for your improvement. So first, the instructor teaches that skill and then works on repetition for practice of that skill. And drill instructors evaluate their effectiveness in three distinct ways. First of all, they evaluate the readiness of their graduates. When a recruit finishes boot camp, they are ready to go serve on a base somewhere in the armed services. They have been deemed to be ready to make a contribution to the life of that particular base, and as a result, they are discharged from boot camp. If they're not deemed as ready to move forward, what happens? Well, they go back to boot camp, or they go back to instruction. So we want to think about what a drill instructor does in terms of readiness. What are you doing to get ready? And we're going to apply that very same question to your coaching presence here in just a few minutes. What are you doing to get ready to offer the maximum coaching presence you possibly can to your clients? Secondly, a drill instructor is all about training. Let's get you equipped with the correct skills, with the ideal sets of outcomes or tools to do what it is you are going to do. Let's make sure that if I'm your drill instructor, I'm going to make sure you acquire some really good habits, some really good orientations to that process of delivering a high quality and meaningful coaching presence. So that training is a key piece. You've got to go out and learn about coaching presence. You've got to wrestle with, organize what you discover about coaching presence. You've got to pick out what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and then integrate it into who you are and how you coach. And like I said a few minutes ago, that's going to look a little bit different for Beth than it does for Bonnie. It'll look different for Ursel than it does for John. That's okay. Coaches are not widgets. I'm coming back to this theme. I didn't intend to come to this theme quite yet, but coaches are not widgets. Coaches are people. Believe it or not, most of us are people. And because we're people, because we're uniquely made, Ephesians 2:10 is really clear that all of us have particular acts of service that were picked out for each of us to accomplish before the world was even formed. It was chosen for you, and that's unique. There is a unique component to all of this that training helps you discover and then accomplish. So as your coaching presence develops, how is it that it is helping you accomplish your unique calling, your unique commitment to God's kingdom? And how is it that you are moving toward that particular vision because of who you are in your coaching conversations? So that's really what training does. Now next, the third thing a drill instructor does is, and this is kind of the famous thing that drill instructors are known for. They provide correction. And that's really where the drop and give me 20, thing is a drill instructor corrects a recruit's technique or understanding. And there are many, 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 many humorous, a little bit shocking stories about what drill instructors do to make an impression and to provide correction for their recruits. Now, perhaps the drill instructor metaphor breaks down in this particular situation, because I do not want to function as that kind of drill instructor for you as you build your coaching presence. I'm not going to call you a maggot, not ever. Like drill instructors do. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not even going to make you do push-ups. If you decided you wanted to do push-ups as a part of developing your particular coaching skills, I think that would be okay. That might be a good trigger for correcting into something different, but you certainly don't have to. The whole idea of mentor coach as drill instructor or coach trainer as drill instructor uses a very different approach and attitude to provide that particular correction, and that is something critical to keep in mind. So I think these three areas are really helpful for us to think about when we evaluate any one of our competencies. We're going to use this particular roadmap to evaluate coaching presence over the next little while. How does what we do in this particular competency area help us arrive at the place of maximum readiness for coaching? How has our training equipped us to serve our clients most effectively? And what is it that we want to hold on to from our training and our practice and our repetition? And then when we discover there's something that doesn't fit what we're trying to accomplish in our coaching presence, how is it that we take a corrective action? That's the framework that we want to work with when we think about coaching presence for the next little while. So as we, if you'll allow me to be your drill instructor, and by drill, I mean practice and repetition. I don't mean drop and give me 20, you maggots. If you'll allow me to be your drill instructor for the next half an hour or so, we're going to dive deep into this entire idea of coaching presence. So let's start there. What actually is coaching presence? Now, from the book, you all can look this up. From the book, here's the ICF definition: the ability to be fully conscious and create spontaneous relationship with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, and confident. I want to point you over to the chat area for right now. Just out of curiosity, as you look at this definition, this single sentence definition, what seems like the most important part to you? Just give me some thoughts. Give me some of your thoughts. Throw them in the chat area so we can get a sense of where the room is. All right, Bradshaw says flexible. Yeah, I like that. I definitely like that part. Good. How about somebody else? Focused, fully conscious. Okay, this is interesting. We've got Kelly saying fully conscious, and spontaneous from Patty, and fully conscious. Spontaneous and spontaneous. Okay, good. Fully conscious. Good. Excellent. Excellent. I like this. Keep going. If you haven't responded yet, go ahead and type in what you think is the most important part of all of this. Okay. Okay, good. 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 All right. Interesting. Interesting. Now go ahead. Let me draw your attention to the chat area here. Scan through these responses, because this is the perfect illustration of coaches are like snowflakes. Because every single one of those is the right answer. Because it's the right answer to one of you. But look at the wide variety. I'm just going to blow through these in just real quick. Real quick. We've got flexible, focused, fully conscious, spontaneous, bunch of fully conscious, fully, just fully, spontaneous, open, relationship, adaptable. Those are just the answers that were thrown out in the quick little exercise that we just did. I think that's a perfect illustration of the challenge of coaching presence. It means a whole range of different things to a whole range of different coaches. And as you grow and develop, you will notice that the things you value most about coaching presence change over time. Now, I added my part. I can't decide. You can see it highlighted there. I can't decide what I think is the most important part of coaching presence, whether it's being open, whether it's being flexible, or whether it's being confident. I will also tell you that I love the idea of creating spontaneous relationship. That's powerful. All of these various things mold together into a well. I'm a wannabe Cajun. You know, I like the whole Cajun world. I like New Orleans. I like the whole Louisiana view on life. You know, I like the idea of gumbo, where you take whatever you've got and you throw it into a pot, and eventually it becomes something delicious. And that's kind of what coaching presence feels like as I read all of these things. That's right, go Cajun, and with the creative Cajun spelling of go. That's right. Thanks, Sherry. You know, that coaching presence really is a gumbo, where you mix a whole bunch of things that as you're thinking about them, you go, I'm not really sure those all connect. But once they cook long enough, you get this really useful creation that wasn't what you started with, may not have been what you anticipated you'd end up with, but is unique and delicious and perfect for your particular situation. And that's kind of the beauty of coaching presence. And like those answers in the chat area, it's a broad enough topic that it's going to mean a whole bunch of different things to a whole bunch of different people. So that's one lens to look at coaching presence. The whole understanding of, hey, what is the competencies? Well, 4 years ago, the ICF introduced the idea of the PCC markers. I think this is a great addition to what's going on in coaching. It's an evidence-based practice where you watch for particular behaviors that are demonstrations that the competency is coming to life. And I want to just go through quickly the markers, the PCC markers for coaching presence. You know, first of all, the coach acts in response to both the whole person of the client and what the client wants to accomplish in the session. And the critical thing here is this little sentence. In fact, let me get my highlighter out here. Let me get my Magic Zoom highlighter out here. We'll use green. Here's the key thing to the entire process. Acts in response. Your coaching presence is, without question, about what you bring to the table. But it's also about acting in response in unique and appropriate and effective ways to what the client brings to the table. So that's a key piece to all of this, that you know, our coaching presence is informed by how well we're connected with our clients and how well we're able to say to our clients, you know what, I hear you, and I want to, let's go further. And together, let's go further. Let's partner and go even deeper into what this is all about. So there's a component of coaching presence. Secondly, the coach is observant, empathetic, and responsive. You know, if the classic example, I've got two examples, and this goes back to my early days at CoachNet. Actually, when I was still a client of CoachNet, and I didn't work here yet, because I was the director of coaching for a denomination for a few years, and that's how I got to know CoachNet. So I remember being in one of the very first trainings I did for CoachNet. And we were working on summarizing and active listening, and we were doing a triad exercises in a big meeting room. There were probably, 30 people or something like that there. And I was walking around because I was the instructor, and I was walking around. I was listening to the various summaries and the various responses that clients were giving. And I actually heard a coach in training say out loud to the person they were listening to, true story, "The stupid thing I just heard you say was," and I went, "Oh, my life is a failure. My life is," and that was well, I guess it was observant. If I look at this particular PCC marker, I guess it was observant. I suppose it was responsive. Was it empathetic? Yeah, not so much. So our coaching presence is much more along those lines. And then later in that same training, in the same room, the same triad, even different coach, there was a client talking about something that was really emotional, really heart-rending for them. And the coach, without breaking eye contact, they just kept looking the client right in the eye without breaking eye contact, got her purse out, took out a Kleenex, and as this client is talking about this heart-wrenching thing, just casually handed her one so that she could dab her eyes. And I thought to myself, that, my brothers and sisters, that is coaching presence. Observant, empathetic, and responsive. I have never, ever forgotten how powerful those two examples were. Coaching presence that is helpful and that builds up the client. Coaching presence that is maybe not quite so helpful and tears down the client when you miss one of those. All right, so that's an example of the markers for coaching presence. Coach notices and explores energy shifts in the client. Okay, that one's pretty clear. Coach exhibits curiosity with intent to learn more. Yeah. You can tell what that's like. And it's different than just checking a box, saying, "Hey, you know what? I should ask you about more. I should ask more." You can, without question, you can communicate to your client, "Do you really want to know this or not?" All right, good. Coach partners with the client by supporting the client to choose what happens in the session. Coach partners with the client by inviting the client to respond in any way to the client's contributions. And coach partners with the client by playing back the client's expressed possibilities for the client to choose from. And the coach partners with the client by encouraging the client to formulate his or her own learning. By the way, just these last four, this is important to understand. These last four is really the first time, these last four markers here, they're really the first time where the ICF defined what it means to partner with a client. If you read the ICF competencies, the partnership language is everywhere. We want to partner with our clients to make this happen. We want to work together with our clients. Well, these markers, the coaching presence markers, really are it's the first place where the ICF defines what it means to partner with clients. So if you don't take anything else away from this particular webinar, this particular session, the CCNI bootcamp, if you don't take anything else away, focus on those four PCC markers for coaching presence, because that gives you a working definition of what it means to partner with a client on according to the ICF's ground rules. So that is big idea. That is the top of the pyramid of big ideas for this particular session. Is getting the partnership right sets the stage for all the rest of this. And you do have to understand exactly what it means to partner with a client, and there it is in writing. It's the first time, like I say, it's the first time the ICF has ever actually written down, when we say partnership, this is what we mean. Now, this is the Christian Coaches Network International, of course, so we would add a little bit of additional language as people coaching and following Jesus together and working in relationship with our clients. We would add a little bit of additional information, a little bit of additional partnership to coaching presence. Coach partners with the client and the Holy Spirit to support the client to choose what happens in the session. Coach partners with the client and the Holy Spirit as they invite the client to respond You know, that's a little bit, that whole presence, that whole idea of, you know, where does the Holy Spirit move? You know, I'm a Luther Costal. I'm one part Lutheran and one part Pentecostal. So I'm a Luther Costal. And in my coaching practice, those gifts of the Spirit present in very different ways because those moments where the Spirit moves are all unique, are all different. My engagement with my client is unique and different, and this partnership opportunity comes to life uniquely and differently based on who we're talking about. All right, so as we get ready to dive into the areas that the drill instructor framed out for us, I'd love to see in the chat area just what's an aha moment, what's a light bulb that you're having so far as we get ready to dive into readiness. What's a moment that for you you've gone, oh yes, aha, I see this now, and I've not ever seen, or I've seen that differently, or you know, what's a creating awareness moment, just to use a different competency. Where's a section where the light bulb's gone on for you thus far as we get ready to dive into readiness? And we're going to move through these three sections a little bit more quickly and go from there, because I've laid the groundwork now. I just want to get a sense of where you're going. So let me be quiet long enough to at least take a sip of my coffee here. And if you want to throw a light bulb moment into the chat area, I'd love to see those. I am a coffee achiever, for sure. All right, a couple of great ideas, a couple of great observations here. Yeah, right on. Ursel, the Spirit is a part of our coaching conversations, without a doubt. You know, coaching presence. Here, let me just take that a little bit slightly different way for you. Coaching presence, the presence of the coach in the relationship. It is not I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. So what if coaching presence as a Christian coach is you committing that Jesus is present in the coaching relationship? You know, I read somewhere where two or more are gathered in my name, there also am I. What if that's what coaching presence actually is for us as Christian coaches? That's you know, let's be honest. If that's how we redefine coaching presence, that's a significantly higher bar than what the ICF reflects for us. You know, I'll own this. I'll own this, and I'm gonna put my heart out here in front of you. You know, I got my MCC about a year ago, and when I got my report feedback from the MCC, I was all excited. Oh, here's my report feedback. I'm finally going to find out. You know, let's see. And of the competencies, I scored at the MCC level on all of them except coaching presence. And I went, oh, crap. So that's part of why I mentioned it, because as we were getting started here, that this was becoming a point of severe emphasis for me. Well, this is why. This is the key. And the other thing that's interesting and notable about that is that I've never really taken the ICF definition that seriously, because my commitment has always been to be the person that reflects Jesus in the coaching conversation. Whether or not I'm working with a faith-based client, I have a whole bunch of Muslim clients. I still want to reflect Jesus in those conversations. So this idea of coaching presence, especially with the three lenses that the drill instructor uses, I would suggest is critical for us if we really want to make kingdom impact. All right, good. So there's some clear ideas that are critical so far. Yeah, I appreciate these comments. I'd urge you to save this chat, because these are great summaries that our brothers and sisters are putting in front of us. So let's talk about readiness. You know, this is the image I typically think of when I think of a drill instructor. Attention, stand up straight. Everybody is ready to act. You know, when a soldier stands at attention, what are they doing? They're offering respect to a superior officer. They're demonstrating that they're ready to act. They're demonstrating that they're in a posture where they can do what soldiers do. And I'd suggest this is a great reminder for us in terms of coaching presence. We're giving respect to our client and to our senior officer. we're ready to do what coaches do, and we're engaged with what's going on around us. So paying attention, I'd suggest, is a key part. Standing at attention, being called to attention. That's actually the way I like it best. Being called to attention is the critical component. Now it also reminds us that the perspective from which we view the situation, the coaching engagement, the coaching encounter. That's actually a term I like using, is coaching encounter. The perspective from which we view the coaching encounter is important, is critical. And I chose this particular image, this guy looking through the binoculars. I chose this particular image on purpose for this view, because he's trying to be an unobserved observer. He's trying to look in from the outside, but not become a part of what's going on. And that's very much what we do as coaches when we have our right kind of coaching presence, is we observe from outside the situation and we try not to participate. We're there to invest, to partner, to define, but we're not there to be the story. We're there to draw out of the people around them. So your perspective and your posture makes a difference. And then one of the things that I would throw out to you that is absolutely critical is your coaching presence is most effective when you are crystal clear on where your client is going. Now, one of the things we say at CoachNet, in fact, at the risk of doing a shameless plug, this is in my book, Coaching Hacks, which I just turned the page on. Simple strategies to make every conversation more effective. Shameless plug, I admit that. One of the things we say that ties into this whole idea of where is this going is you can't coach what your client won't say. You can't coach something that your client isn't willing to talk about. So your coaching presence has to be founded around what the client actually says, as opposed to what you think they're saying or what you wish they were saying, or anything along those lines. So that critical and clear understanding of, hey, where is this going, is crucial for us as Christian coaches. Where is this going? Wherever the Spirit is going to lead us, wherever Jesus has picked out for it to go, we're willing to coach. Now, you may or may not overtly talk about, what do you think Jesus would have you do? I don't actually say that to a lot of my clients. Some of them, but not all of them. Not certainly not more than a quarter or a third of my clients would that language actually work. But I have a really clear picture of where they're going, both externally, professional development, things like that, but also the sense of who they are at the core of themselves. And that ties to my particular coaching presence. All right, it is time for your continuing coach education code. Debbie's here to give you the magic digits so that you can get your credits from the International Coach Federation to renew your credentials. So I'll be quiet and you work your magic, Debbie.
Okay, well, the first passcode is 2 words, the Lord, THELORD.
And now, just to be clear for folks that are doing this for the first time, this is not the same code in every one of these sessions. This is unique to this particular session.
Correct.
All right, and you'll give a different one at the end of our session.
Correct.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, back to you.
Right, you want to? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's move to the second thing that drill instructors teach us about coaching presence, about this whole idea of training. This whole idea of training. I hate to admit this. Because this is such a key piece of who we are as coaches. But I'm not going to say, I don't think honest to goodness partnership comes naturally to us. I don't. I don't think that's instinctively, naturally at our core who we are. I think that's because of the fallen nature of the world and the various things that that happened, from which Jesus is coming to deliver us. And I think there's always things that get in the way of honest to goodness partnership. And one of the things that working on, applying your training and working through what you do with all kinds of different engagement, different details, that training and awareness and skill building looks to equip you to actually build the kind of partnerships. Now, it's all kinds of helpful. Don't get me wrong. It's all kinds of helpful that the ICF is now telling us this is what partnership means in our view of coaching. This is what partnership means in our view. But until you get serious about applying what it is that your coach training taught you, or applying what it is that you understand about your particular skills in coaching, you're going to fall a little bit short of that whole idea of partnership. So let me just challenge you by asking directly, what do you think, or what opportunities do you see in front of yourselves to build more effective partnerships with your clients? How can you do that better? That's the $64 million question. Actually, I guess it wasn't $64 million, was it? It was the $64,000 question, or the $128,000 pyramid, or take a risk. That's right, Ursel. Don't be afraid. Extend yourself a little bit. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Your client is going to go as far as they're willing to go and no farther. That's not a bad thing. Take that risk and invite them into the conversation. All right. So the second thing training does, and this I'm gonna say this differently for this group than I would normally. Training reminds us that we should always remember what intuition is. When you read the ICF competencies, intuition is all over the place. One of the guys who was my mentor coach, and some of you probably have also worked with this particular individual. One of the guys that I had mentor coaching with, he used to say, step out on the skinny branch, but only do it when the Holy Spirit's the one saying, come on out. So remember what intuition is. When you have that little voice in the back of your head, that maybe we could call it a still small voice in the back of your head, remember what that intuition is and follow it. Now, here's one of the things that as a Christian coach, I look at what's happening around me in my coaching conversations, and I think to myself, following my intuition, going with my gut, really isn't a risk at all. Because if I'm following my intuition, and intuition is the voice of the Holy Spirit, that's not a risk at all. If I'm inviting my clients to change, and the change is being guided by the Holy Spirit, it doesn't mean the change is going to be easy. Change is going to be easy. It doesn't mean the change is going to be pleasant. Might be. But it does mean the change is going to be designed by the Holy Spirit. So you know what? It's going to work. And by following that particular set of incomes or a set of outcomes, my client is going to be more effective as they move forward, because they're going to be more in line with what God has in mind for them. So remember what intuition is, and remind yourself that, you know what, the truth of it is, that it's not a risk at all, not even remotely, if you follow your intuition, because of what intuition actually is. All right? So finally, the last piece about training is that, and I think the military gives us a great example of this. Boot camp gives us a great example of this. You learn to use your equipment. You learn to use the tools that you have in mind, you have available to you. And what are the tools that coaches have available to them? Well, we've got our coaching presence. We've got our listening skills and our questioning skills and our action designing skills and all of those kinds of things. But you've also got your experience. You've also got your wiring. You've also got your history. Learn to use those through repetition, through training, through structure, through intention, through getting feedback, through peer coaching, through, heck, I'm in a coaching supervision relationship right now. It's the best thing I've done in a long time, where I've got a really powerful, I shouldn't say powerful, I've got a really experienced master coach that is working with me, and he's circling around. He's not really mentoring me because we talk about the ICF. Excuse me, we do talk about the competencies, like in a mentor coaching relationship, but it's not exclusively about the competencies. It's about all the things that speak into making me a more effective coach. That's what I would describe as learning to use your equipment. You know, get that whole thing integrated holistically. You know, that's a great opportunity for us to really make the most of what's going on here. If you're going to the doctor, do you want a surgeon who really hasn't figured out how to use that clampy thing, you know, that thing, or do you really want to work with a surgeon who can't quite figure out how to read that X-ray? No, that doesn't exactly fill you with confidence. What you want is a situation where you've got someone who is solid themselves, skilled themselves, but also uses all of the tools. That's their particular impact. All right, so that's that's how the drill instructor approach toward training might speak into your coaching presence. So, you know, get some feedback from your coaching presence, and let me just say to you, if you are not listening to recordings of your coaching, of your own coaching, if you are not listening to recordings of your own coaching, you should be. You 100% should be. Because the fastest way to improve your coaching presence is to evaluate it objectively by listening to a recording. My college basketball coach used to say, the eye in the sky does not lie. Say, no, coach, I didn't do that in the game. Well, let's go to the game film. Okay, coach, what should I do different? I cannot tell you how many times that played out for me as a college basketball player. Oh no, coach, I didn't do that. I wouldn't make that decision. Okay, coach, what should I do different next time? And you know, after that few times, how do you get your clients on board with recording? Okay, well that's a great question. I appreciate asking that. Let me just speak to that right now. I put it in my covenants in my contracts that I have the right. In fact, I just changed this. Now I can say this because I'm hopefully never going to have to submit another recording for a credential again, because you know I got the MCC here. So I just changed the way it wrote. It used to say, I reserve the right to record every coaching conversation, and you agree, to be used for one of two purposes: evaluation and improvement by myself and by people that I engage with. And I wrote it that way. I wrote it just like that. Evaluation and improvement by me or the people I work with. Because you know, I've had 2 or 3 different mentor coaches. And then I've also occasionally gone to people I admire, like well, actually, Chad Hall is going to speak in this event. I've gone to Chad and said, "Hey, would you review my recording? Would you give me your thoughts about my recording?" And he shot me straight. You know, not invested in any way. He just told me what he thought. So I put it that way: evaluation and improvement of my skills by myself or with people I trust, or submission to the International Coach Federation, the governing body with which I work. I had a line in my covenant like that read just that way. That I would urge you, you know, to be honest, just be honest with you, I would urge you to put that there, because then you talk about it before you record it. Now, one of the things that I also include a line like that says something along the lines of, I'll be happy to make the recordings available to you if you want them. And occasionally I have clients that say, you know, I would really like to hear I'd really like to hear this. I'd like to really go over that. And I'm like, great. Now, here's the other component to all this and I'll just tell you this because this is going to scare, and I'm going to warn you, this is going to scare the heck out of some of you. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of those digital components, they're going to make evaluating coaching conversations a lot easier, a lot more effective. You're going to be a lot more able to get a sense of what goes on in your coaching. You're going to be able to identify habits and patterns and all kinds of details about what's happening for you in your coaching conversation. You're going to have a lot of opportunities to really get serious about, at a very detailed level, what's going on in your coaching conversations. You're going to be able to make tiny little adjustments over time that add up to big changes in your coaching. The digital revolution is about to touch the coaching world, and what we do now is not going to be the same as what we do in a few years as a result about that. So that is critical. I want to just affirm Walt Hastings. Listening and evaluating recordings of my own coaching is the single best thing I've done to improve my coaching skills to achieve the MCC credential. Me too. Two guys with MCCs both saying listening and evaluating your recorded coaching is the best way to improve. You can take that to the bank. I know Walt a little bit. I also know you can take everything he says really seriously. The guy gets it. So that's seriously, you got to get in that habit. Yeah, definitely have it in recording. Do it over time. Yeah, and Patty's right. If you miss a great session that you weren't recording, you know what? Here's the attitude. My first job after college was I worked at a golf course. I taught golf lessons. I thought I was going to be a club pro. I thought I was going to work at golf courses my entire life. And so instead, I got into television and then coaching. And there was a guy, the head pro of the first course I worked at. The first time I played with him, I played great. I shot 34 on the 9. I played great. I lost by 5 shots. My boss shot 29. And I said, "You just shot 29. Don't we want to go play the back 9?" And he looked at me. I've never forgotten this. And this applies to your coaching in those moments when you forget to record something. He looked at me and goes, "What, you don't think I can do it again?" Let that sink in. That's exactly the attitude you need to have when you have a great session. What? You don't think I can have what? You don't think I can do that again? Really? Yeah, you can do it again. You can do it again without a doubt. You can do it again. So record it next time. All right, let's sprint to the finish here. Just about out of my time. I don't want to keep you beyond that. I'll type it in the chat here in a second, Pam. When we get to the Q&A time. Correction and coaching presence. Be willing to work out strong emotions. That's one of the big pieces of yeah. Patty just put a great summary in there. That's a really good. This whole idea of working out and working with strong emotions. This is where your coaching presence gets tested. Where it gets tested. You have to be confident, strong enough, in some cases still enough to let your client work out their strong emotions. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about who I am, but I have always been the guy, ever since high school. This started happening to me in high school. I've always been the guy that people told stuff to that they wouldn't tell anybody else. And that shows up in my coaching. And I cannot tell you, in fact, my wife was a little freaked out about this when I was telling her about this. When we first got married, I bet half my clients cry in the conversation. I'm serious. I bet it's close to half of my clients cry during our coaching sessions. And if that could weird you out, I think, if you're not clear on why that's happening and why the coaching presence matters. And the reason it doesn't weird me out is that we're getting at the core of really meaningful things. There's strong emotion happening. And the best way to work out strong emotion, to drop and get, is to work through it, to do the push-ups that help you stay on top of that particular process. So if you want to measure your coaching presence, this is a great strategy. This is a great strategy, is if you want to measure your coaching presence, see how well you do when your client's got strong emotions. Oh, I love the fact Melody just put in the chat here, Keith Webb at 3:00 today in like 90 minutes, assuming I'm done, and I will be, is about how to discuss emotions, how to coach through them. Yeah, jump on that. Go to that session. Keith's great. You'll love him. That's exactly what you're after. It's a direct indication of your coaching presence, how well you're able to work through those strong emotions that your client is showing. Now, secondarily, be careful with humor, and here's why. This is critical. In fact, I almost did. You've probably gotten the sense over the last 45 minutes. I'm a little bit of a nutball. I drink way too much coffee. I've got a lot of energy to begin with, but I drink way too much coffee, and I tend to go stream of consciousness from time to time, which is both a real asset to my coaching with the right client, and a real barrier to my coaching with the wrong client. So I know I've got to be really careful about choosing my clients, because I'm an acquired taste. I don't work for everyone, But that's the thing. Coaches are like snowflakes. Hello, big old snowflake right here, and I mean that in the I'm different than you are and you're different than me, not in the we don't like snowflakes, you're too easily triggered kind of snowflake. Although some people would say I'm that too. So be careful with humor. Be careful with humor, because what does humor do? What happens when you laugh? Neurologically, when you laugh, and this is absolutely true. Neurologically, when you laugh, right before you laugh, there's tension that is built up in your brain, and it's typically on the top of your brain, which is really interesting because it's the only thing that happens at the top of your brain for most people. It happens at the top of your brain, and it's a both sides of the brain kind of thing where this tension builds up. And then when you laugh, it gets released, and your brain settles down to a calmer, more placid level. Laughter is a great way to calm the amygdala down. You know what the amygdala is? It's that part of your brain that vibrates like this, that causes the fight or flight responses. Well, laughter is a great, critical strategy to calm the amygdala down. So be very, very careful with humor, because at the most basic level, all of that helpful tension in your coaching that's energy. When you get somebody who's a little tense, you can leverage that tension to springboard them forward into something new and something meaningful. That tension can be helpful. And humor, what does humor do? Humor diffuses that, so you just lost that opportunity to move forward. Christine also points out that it's very important to be careful with humor when you're in cross-cultural coaching. Absolutely. The humor that the people in my culture, the Luther Costals in the suburbs, the humor that my culture uses is very different. I spent the month of July in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, working with clients there, and I thought they were hilarious. They didn't laugh at a single joke I made for an entire month. And I finally just went, you know what? I'm not even going to try. And now, unfortunately, it wasn't offensive. I didn't cross the line and offend them. It was, and truthfully, I had been warned that the KL sense of humor is very different than the American sense of humor. So I knew that coming in, and then I'd also been told where the line is to avoid. But it was even more stark than I thought it was, and it just reinforced for me that humor, you have to really have a terrific relationship, or else it doesn't work. Because first of all, you're diffusing all that helpful tension in your brain, and secondly, you have no guarantee that what you think is funny is actually going to be funny to the other person. Yeah, the amygdala. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for putting the amygdala comment, the definition of the amygdala in the chat area. I appreciate that. It's a part of the brain it's the center of your brain that triggers the fight or flight responses. And if you diffuse that tension and calm it back down, you just lost all that energy that your client might be able to use to move forward. So that's a coaching presence component, is to learn when you can use humor, when it might redirect that tension as opposed to diffuse it. And that's the guideline I want to use is humor has to move my client forward, or else I don't want to move them forward. It's not the Bible. Yeah. The competency says humor creates lightness. You're right. The competency does say creates lightness and energy. Yes. And that's the only time you should use it, is when you create lightness and energy. Well, that's what's going on, is the amygdala is slowing down, and lightness descends, and the person becomes calm and reinvigorated. Only how often does it actually happen that way? That's the thing. So the competency, in theory, does create lightness and energy. The humor does, in theory, create lightness and energy, but it only does that when you use it appropriately. It should be a springboard, a diving board that sends your client to new heights, not something that dissipates it and causes it to lose energy and focus. So that's critical. That's critical. So appreciate you bringing that up. Okay, last one. Celebrate, without a doubt. Celebrate what you got going on that is helpful. When a client makes a breakthrough, has a creating awareness moment, when you have that sense that they went, aha, point it out. I have a client actually that taught me this great strategy that I use. Well, I always use it when I'm being coached. And I do have a couple of coaches. I work with a couple of different coaches in a couple of different areas. And then I've taught it to some of my clients as well. This client said to me, whenever he had an idea that he'd never had before, he always incorporated this. He did this all throughout his life. Whenever he had an idea that he never had before, he would say, you know what, I just had a fresh thought. Or, that was a fresh thought. And what that was doing, it was reminding him. And as I have incorporated this into my coaching presence, it's been very helpful to point out to my clients, to observe to my clients, Christine, that sounded like that might have been a fresh thought. Just offer that. And if they say, oh no, I thought about that before, okay, fine, we just move on. You offer it without attachment, in the client, in the coach specific language that we prefer. And when they do have a fresh thought, you can say, you know what, way to go. Right on. So what does that mean for you, or where's that taking you? You've got great opportunities to invite the client to think further. All right. So in a second here, I'll give you a chance to ask questions, and Debbie's going to come back and do a special magic CCE passcode. She's going to work her numeric magic here again in a moment. If you want to know more about coaching presence, I've got a special for you here, coachnet.org/CCNI, and I'll put that in the chat area here in a moment. You can download, I wrote an ebook called A Theology of Coaching that looks at all of this from a faith-based standpoint. And you can download that there, it's free. Jump in, pick that up, coachnet.org/CCI. And now, here's Debbie. Oh, Debbie, we're not hearing you all of a sudden. I see you smiling. Oh. I wonder if Debbie maybe froze. Uh-oh. Technology is awesome when it works.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, the second passcode is the word lives. 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 Sorry for that issue there, but hopefully everybody heard it.
All right, no problem at all, Debbie. I appreciate that. Let's wrap up our time together a question or a comment or an insight. I'd love to, if anybody wants to wrestle around with this a little bit more. I'd be happy to take any Q&A or if you've got a good coaching joke, I'm always open to that, because there's no helpful tension that we can diffuse here. Or if you want to throw in the chat area an aha or an oh no or a duh or a wow or a or maybe I learned this one from my from that same client, or maybe an oh really. Who's got a fresh thought or a question that you want to wrestle through? Put in the chat area. Is CC&I getting into the conversation with ICF about the changing competencies? That is a great question that I can't answer. So maybe Kelly or Debbie or Melody, maybe one of you could answer that.
Yeah, this is Kelly, and I would say, yeah, we're waiting to see what they do. And of course, we have our own version of the competencies to include the faith integration. So if you haven't checked those out, go to the About page and you'll find some links there where you can download those.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say there's also on that particular topic, Case Western Reserve University, which is here in Cleveland, Ohio. A guy named one of the business school and psychology professors there is a guy named Richard Boyatzis. He wrote the original. He worked with Daniel Goleman on the original research, so he's the real deal. He is right now in the middle of a significant research project looking at behavioral implications of coaching competencies. So that's going to be a piece of the conversation as well. And I can tell you that the people that are on his team, I know Dr. Boyatzis a little bit. I know a number of people on his team quite well, and they're all people of faith. They're all acutely aware of the role of faith, the role of prayer, the role of the Spirit in facilitating change in coaching. So that should be encouraging for coaches who are also people of faith as well. Case Western Reserve University, Boyatzis is spelled B-O-Y-A-T-Z-I-S. That would be well worth looking into. Looking into. All right, Patty's asking me to comment again. I wrestled with dropping that bomb. Where I think coaching is going in the future, the whole digital change that is coming in. I don't think coaching itself is going to change that much, but I think how we develop coaching skills is going to change very much. I suspect that with the whole big data movement and the fact that you can evaluate recorded sessions on multiple different levels using multiple different tools, all kinds of different ways. There are going to be new metrics evaluated, new metrics developed that evaluate whether or not coaching is effective. And I don't think we know what those are yet. Those metrics are, but they're going to become more and more clear over time. So the thing you can do to prepare for that, I think it's twofold. Number one, work in community to develop the best possible coaching skills you can. And here's what I mean by working in community. I think there's a couple of critical things. One is always have a coach. You should if you are a coaching professional, you should also be being coached. I have 3 different ones. I have a discipleship coach who's really my pastor, although he's not the pastor of the church my family and I go to, which is a bit of a sore subject between me and that guy, because I refer to this discipleship coach as my pastor. He lives in Montana. I live in Ohio. So that's one. I have a mentor coach, somebody who works with me on the ICF competencies, who helps me develop skill in delivering my coaching along those lines. I've got my MCC. I'm never going to get another credential again, probably. But I still want to improve. And this mentor coach helps me. Now, we only talk 3 times a year, but we're still in this relationship. And then thirdly, I have a small business coach. I have a guy who coaches me on growing my business, my training and my coaching business. The fact that I'm in that coaching posture helps me train coaches more effectively. Helps me work with coaches as a coach. Helps me work with clients as a coach more effectively. Develop that skill in community. And then secondly, get in a peer group. I'm also in a peer group. That's what the supervision thing I mentioned just before. It's a peer group of coaches without any hierarchy to it, but using the 7-point supervision model. If you don't know what that is, Google that. Peter Hawking, the 7-point supervision model. Google that. It'd be mind-bending in a good way. And work to develop your coaching skills in a peer relationship like that. That's so important. It's so important because the feedback that you get from a peer is different than the feedback you get from a coach or from a mentor. It just is. And then constantly ask for feedback from your clients. So develop your skills. Develop your skills in community. That's what I mean when I say that. Top, above, alongside, and below. Mentor, coach yourself, peer community, client community. Develop your skills in community so that when those new metrics are identified, you're going to have an ability you're going to be able to say, you know what, I have an awareness of this particular skill on my part. Here's how it presents for me, and this is what I would suspect would be the measurement. So develop your skills on a 360-degree level, on a transparent level, so that you can work moving forward in ways that are meaningful. And I just want to affirm Kelly's comment in the chat area. Develop your skills in community. It's the heartbeat of CC&I. That should be the CC&I slogan. Develop your coaching skills in community. So that's what I would throw out to you about where that's going. Just knowing that there are different evaluation, observation, developmental, strategic tools. That's the thing. And quite honestly, if we develop our skills in community, if we do this as a whole, all of us, if we do this as a whole, coaching becomes a movement. And I would suggest to you, and I think all of you believe this or else you wouldn't be here, I would suggest to you that there is no more powerful, intentional, strategic way to advance the mission of God's kingdom than people who are committed to the advancement of God's kingdom, leveraging coaching skills to make that happen. So that's a good place to stop. So love to. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be here. But if I can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to give me a call. That's my cell phone. That's this phone right here. It's the only way to get a hold of me. Be happy to talk with you about all of this. So you can contact me at your convenience. That's my wife with me in the photo on my as you look at the photo on my right, that's my 16-year-old daughter on the left. She's not doing laundry. I was worried she was going to come down the stairs here into my office and walk through to the laundry room while we were talking about this, but she's not. But that's who you would have seen. And hey, keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for being a part of the Christian Coaches movement. And I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk through some of these ideas about coaching presence. We kind of went like this, but we threw some things against the wall, and hopefully some of it stuck. So, hey, really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and definitely we'll look forward to being a participant alongside some of you in upcoming sessions throughout the rest of the boot camp. So thanks, Debbie. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Everybody is just raving about what you have shared with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.